James pushed his cleaning cart down the empty hallway of Maxwell Industries. It was 11:30 at night and his back was killing him. "Hey, look who's here," a voice echoed from the security desk. "It's our favorite trash man." Rick and Tony sat behind the desk eating pizza. Rick was the bigger one with a beer gut. Tony was younger, always trying to impress his partner. James kept walking. "I'm talking to you, janitor boy," Rick called out. James stopped and turned around. "Yes, sir." "Don't you sir me," Rick laughed. "You know what? Tony and I were just saying how pathetic you look every night, pushing that cart around like some kind of ghost." Tony snickered. "Yeah, man. Don't you have a life?" James felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice calm. "Just doing my job, gentlemen. Have a good night." He started to walk away again. "Hold up," Rick said. "You hungry?" James paused. He was hungry. He'd skipped dinner to save money for his mother's medicine. But he knew where this was going. "We got some leftover pizza here," Rick continued, holding up the box. "Half a slice left. You want it?" "No, thank you," James said quietly. "Come on, don't be proud." Tony was grinning now. "We know you're broke as hell. We see you eating from the break room trash every night." Heat rushed to James's face. He did sometimes take food people left behind. It wasn't stealing. People threw it away anyway. "I'm fine," James said. "He's too good for our charity, Rick." Tony stood up. "But not too good to eat garbage like a raccoon." Both guards burst out laughing. James gripped the handle of his cart. Every muscle in his body wanted to say something, to tell them who he really was, to wipe those smug grins off their faces. He wanted to see the look on their faces when they realized. But that would ruin everything, not yet. Not tonight. Tomorrow would be worth the wait. "Enjoy your evening," he said instead, keeping his voice steady, and walked away. Their laughter followed him down the hall. He could still hear Tony's voice echoing off the walls. "Did you see his face?" He looked like he was going to cry. Let them laugh, James thought. Tomorrow everything changes. What they didn't know was that tomorrow morning everything would change. Tomorrow, James would walk through those doors as someone very different, and those guards would realize they'd made the biggest mistake of their lives. James went back to cleaning. He entered the executive floor with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. James pulled out his phone and looked at a photo. His mother sitting in her wheelchair in her small living room, smiling despite everything. The treatments had taken their toll. She looked tired, thinner than she used to be. But her smile was still there, still warm, still full of love. She didn't know the truth either. She thought he was working as a janitor to make ends meet, struggling to pay her medical bills. She had no idea why he was really here. No idea that this was all part of a plan. "Soon, Mom," he whispered to the photo, his finger tracing her face on the screen. "Soon everything will be different. Soon I can take care of you the way you always took care of me." He put his phone away and started cleaning the conference room. Someone had left papers scattered on the table. James glanced at them without touching anything. Financial reports. The company was struggling. He already knew that, of course. That's why he was here. "Hey, janitor." James's heart sank. "Rick again." The man had followed him upstairs. I said, "Hey." Rick was in the doorway now, still holding his pizza box. "You deaf or something?" "I heard you," James said. "Then why didn't you answer?" Rick walked into the room. "You think you're better than me. You think because you're up here cleaning fancy offices, you're somehow special. I don't think that at all. Good, because you're nothing." "You hear me?" "Nothing." Rick opened the pizza box. Inside was the half slice he'd mentioned before. "Here, take it." "I insist." James looked at the slice. It was cold. Grease had congealed on the cheese. "I'm not hungry," he said. "I wasn't asking." Rick stepped closer. "Take the damn pizza." "Or are you too proud?" James met his eyes. He could end this right now. One sentence. But that would ruin everything he'd been working toward for the past 6 months. He took the slice. "Good boy," Rick said, grinning. "Now eat it." "I want to see you eat it." Every bite. James raised the cold pizza to his mouth. It tasted like cardboard and shame. The grease was thick on his tongue. The cheese had gone rubbery, but he chewed. He swallowed. He looked Rick right in the eye as he did it. "There you go," Rick laughed, clapping his hands together. "That's what I thought. You're just another nobody who'll do anything for scraps. You know what you are. You're nothing. And you always will be nothing." Rick left, still laughing, his footsteps heavy on the marble floor. James stood there for a long moment, the taste of cold pizza still in his mouth. Then he smiled. A small smile. A knowing smile. Rick had no idea what was coming. James stood there, the taste of cold pizza in his mouth, and allowed himself a small smile. Let them laugh. Let them think they'd won. Tomorrow the real story would begin. He moved to the next office. This one belonged to the former CEO, Mr. Henderson, who'd retired last month. James ran his dustcloth over Henderson's empty desk. Soon this would be his desk, his company to save. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother's nurse. "Your mom is asking for you. She's having a good day. Can you visit tomorrow?" James smiled. "I'll be there in the afternoon." Have something big to tell her. He put the phone away and kept cleaning. Just a few more hours until his shift ended. Just a few more hours of being invisible. At 3 in the morning, James clocked out. He walked past the security desk. "See you tomorrow, garbage man," Rick called out. "See you tomorrow," James replied softly. Oh, they would definitely see him tomorrow. But not how they expected. James drove home to his small apartment. It was almost 4 when he crawled into bed, but he couldn't sleep. Tomorrow was too important. He thought about the past 6 months, working as a janitor, being invisible, watching, learning, understanding exactly what was wrong with this company and how to fix it. Every night he'd taken mental notes. Every conversation he'd overheard. Every complaint whispered in hallways. Every problem ignored by management. He thought about Rick and Tony, about every joke, every insult, every time they'd made him feel small. He'd counted. 43 times they'd mocked him directly. Countless more when they didn't know he could hear them. Tomorrow they would understand that titles didn't define a person's worth. Tomorrow they would learn that the man they'd been mocking was about to become their boss. And they would never forget the lesson. James closed his eyes, imagining their faces. The shock, the fear, the realization that they'd made a terrible mistake. James closed his eyes. Just a few more hours. When his alarm went off at 7, James didn't hit snooze. He jumped out of bed, heart pounding with anticipation. Today was the day. He showered. He shaved. He put on the only suit he owned, a dark blue one he'd bought at a thrift store. It was a little worn, but it fit well enough. James looked at himself in the mirror. The janitor was gone. The CEO was looking back. But first, James thought, let me tell you how it got to this point. How a successful businessman ended up working as a janitor in his own company. Because that story started 6 months earlier, on the worst day of his life. James had been living in California running a tech startup. Life was good. He had money, success, a beautiful apartment overlooking the ocean. Then his mother called. "James, honey, I need to tell you something." Her voice had been shaking. That's when James knew it was bad. The doctors found something, a tumor. They say I need treatment, but the insurance won't cover all of it. James had taken the first flight to Chicago. His mother lived alone in the same small house where he'd grown up. The same house where she'd raised him by herself after his father died when James was 5. The same house where she'd worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on. Where she'd helped him with homework at the kitchen table. Where she'd taught him about integrity, hard work, and treating people with respect. "I'm going to take care of everything, Mum," he'd promised her in the hospital room, holding her frail hand. "Don't worry about money. Don't worry about anything. You took care of me my whole life. Now it's my turn to take care of you." But the treatments were expensive. His startup funds ran dry. He sold everything. That's when he heard about Maxwell Industries. The company was looking for a new CEO. James had the experience and credentials, but the board wanted someone who understood the company from the inside. Someone who knew the employees, the culture, the real problems. So James made a decision that seemed crazy to everyone who knew him. He applied for a job as a night janitor at Maxwell Industries. He would work there for 6 months. Learn everything. Then reveal who he was and apply for the CEO position. Nobody knew except the chairman of the board, an old friend of his father's named Robert Chen. Robert had agreed to keep James's secret. It was risky, but Robert believed in him. 6 months, Robert had said. "Show me you understand this company better than anyone else, and the job is yours." So James had become invisible. He'd cleaned toilets, mopped floors, emptied trash cans, and he'd listened, watched, learned. He learned the sales team was unhappy, the IT department used outdated equipment, and talented employees were leaving. He also learned about Rick and Tony. The first time they mocked him, it had stung. But he'd swallowed his pride to see how employees at every level were treated. Now, 6 months later, he understood this company better than anyone. He knew exactly how to fix it, and today the board would officially announce him as the new CEO. James grabbed his keys and headed for the door. Then he stopped. He walked back to the kitchen and made himself a sandwich. Turkey and cheese. He wrapped it carefully and put it in his bag. Today he wouldn't need to eat leftovers. The drive to Maxwell Industries took 20 minutes. James parked in the employee lot one last time. Next week, he'd have the executive spot with his name on it. He walked toward the entrance, briefcase in hand. Through the glass doors he could see the security desk. Rick and Tony were there. Same as always, this was it. The moment James had been waiting for. He pulled open the door and walked inside. Rick looked up from his phone. His eyes widened slightly at seeing James in a suit, but then he smirked. Well, 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 Rick said loudly. Look who's playing dress-up. You got a job interview somewhere, garbage man. Tony laughed. Dude, where'd you get that suit? Goodwill. James stopped in front of their desk. He looked at both of them calmly. Good morning, gentlemen. Oh, it's gentlemen now. Rick stood up, crossing his arms. What happened to your janitor uniform? You quit or something? Actually, James said, I have a meeting this morning. A meeting? Tony was grinning like this was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. Here in this building? Yes. Let me guess, Rick said. You're applying to be a security guard. Sorry, buddy, but we're not hiring people who eat trash. Other employees were arriving for work. Some glanced over, curious. I'm not applying for security, James said quietly. Then what? Rick leaned forward. Guys like you don't belong upstairs with the suits. James resisted the urge to respond. Just a little longer. I need to go, he said. Excuse me. He started to walk past them toward the elevators. Hey! Rick called out. I didn't dismiss you. James kept walking. I said stop. Rick's voice was angry now. James stopped and turned around. Both guards were standing now. Several other employees had paused to watch. You don't just walk away when I'm talking to you, Rick said. I don't care if you're wearing a fancy suit. You're still a janitor. You're still nothing, Tony nodded. Yeah, man. Show some respect. James looked at them for a long moment. These were the men who had mocked him every single night for 6 months. Who had made him eat cold pizza? Who had called him garbage? And in about an hour they would be working for him. You're right, James said softly, looking directly at Rick. I apologize. I should have been more respectful to you both. Rick blinked, surprised. He hadn't expected an apology. Damn right you should. It won't happen again, James continued, his voice calm but carrying an edge Rick couldn't quite identify. I promise you, after today, things are going to be very different. Very different indeed. Something in his tone made Rick narrow his eyes, something in the way James was looking at him. Not like a janitor looking at a guard, but like something else, something Rick couldn't place. What's that supposed to mean? Rick demanded. James smiled. Just a small smile. So you'll see, he said quietly. You'll see very soon. Have a good morning, gentlemen. This time when he walked away, they didn't stop him. James rode the elevator to the top floor. His hands were shaking from anticipation. The executive conference room was filling up. Board members, senior executives, Robert Chen stood by the window. When he saw James, he smiled. Ready? Robert asked. More than ready. In 10 minutes, we announce you as CEO. Your life is about to change. It already has, James said. There's going to be skepticism, Robert warned. Some people won't understand why we chose you. They'll question your methods. Let them question, James said. I know this company better than anyone in this room. I've seen it from the bottom up. I know exactly what's broken and how to fix it. I believe you, Robert said. That's why I'm backing you. But James, once you're announced, there's no going back. You'll be responsible for 2,000 employees, for a company that's losing money every quarter. Are you sure you're ready for this? James thought about his mother, about working night shifts, about eating leftovers from the break room, about Rick and Tony's laughter echoing through empty hallways. I'm sure, he said. The board chairman, a woman named Margaret Sullivan, stood at the head of the table. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could begin, she said. We have an important announcement to make this morning. Everyone took their seats. James remained standing near the back of the room. As you all know, Margaret continued, we've been searching for a new CEO since Mr. Henderson's retirement. We needed someone special. Someone who truly understands this company and its challenges. She paused, looking around the room. After an extensive search, the board has made its decision. Please join me in welcoming the new Chief Executive Officer of Maxwell Industries. She gestured toward James. Mr. James Morrison. The room fell silent. James walked to the front, feeling every eye on him. Some people looked confused. Others looked curious. A few executives he recognized from his time cleaning their offices looked shocked. Thank you, Margaret, James said, shaking her hand. He turned to face the room. This was it. Time to prove himself. I know what you're all thinking, he began. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? Why should we trust him to lead this company? He saw a few executives nodding. Good, at least they were honest. My name is James Morrison. For the past 6 months I've been working here at Maxwell Industries. Doing what? A man in the back asked. James recognized him as the Chief Financial Officer, David Wright. James smiled. I was the night janitor. The room erupted. People started talking all at once. Someone laughed. Others looked at Margaret like she'd lost her mind. Order, please, Margaret said firmly. Let him explain. James waited for the noise to die down. I came to this company with extensive experience in business management, but I knew that to truly lead Maxwell Industries, I needed to understand it from the inside. So I applied for a position as a janitor. That's insane, someone muttered. Maybe, James agreed. But it worked. For 6 months, I've seen how this company really operates. I know what's working and what's not. We can fix this company and make it profitable again. But it requires big changes. David Wright stood up. With all due respect, cleaning toilets doesn't qualify you to run a company with 2,000 employees and a budget of hundreds of millions of dollars. You're right, James said. But my MBA from Harvard does. My 5 years of experience running a company that grew from 5 employees to 200 does. My understanding of technology, finance, and business strategy does. The janitor work was just research. Very thorough research. He pulled out a thick binder from his briefcase and placed it on the table. This is my 90-day plan. It outlines every problem I've identified and my proposed solutions. I think you'll find it very comprehensive. Robert Chen picked up the binder and started flipping through it. His eyebrows went up. This is extremely detailed, Robert said. James has documented inefficiencies in every department, specific problems with specific solutions. I had a lot of time to observe, James said. Night shifts are very quiet. Good for taking notes, Margaret smiled. The board has reviewed Mr. Morrison's credentials thoroughly. We believe he's exactly what this company needs, someone who understands us from the ground up. I still think it's crazy, David muttered, but he sat down. You're welcome to think that, James said. But I'm asking for 90 days. Give me 3 months to prove myself. If the company isn't moving in the right direction by then, I'll step down. No hard feelings. That seemed to satisfy most people. The meeting continued with discussions about transition plans, announcements to staff, and logistics. An hour later, it was done. James Morrison was officially the CEO of Maxwell Industries. Congratulations, Robert said, shaking his hand again. Now comes the hard part. What's that? Actually doing the job, James grinned. I'm not worried. I've been preparing for 6 months. There's one more thing you need to do today, Margaret said. We're holding an all-company meeting at 10. You'll need to introduce yourself to the staff. All 2,000 employees? Everyone we can fit in the main auditorium. The rest will watch on screens in their departments. This is your chance to make a first impression. James nodded. I'll be ready. He spent the next hour in his new office reviewing his notes. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother's nurse. Tell her I'll be there at 2. And that her son is now a CEO, he typed back. He wasn't thinking about his new office. He was thinking about Rick and Tony and all the other employees who might have been treated the same way. James picked up his phone and called security management. This is Susan Garcia, a woman answered. Hi, Susan. This is James Morrison, the new CEO. I need you to do something for me. There was a pause. Oh, Mr. Morrison. Congratulations. Of course, what do you need? I need you to pull the security footage from the front desk for the past 6 months. Every interaction between the guards and employees. Can you do that? Yes, sir. May I ask why? Just a review, James said. I want to see how our security team interacts with staff. Bring it to my office this afternoon. Yes, sir. Right away, James hung up. He wasn't going to fire Rick and Tony, not yet. But he was going to make sure they understood exactly who they'd been mocking all these months. At 9:45, James headed down to the auditorium. Employees were filing in, talking excitedly. Nobody knew who the new CEO was yet. James stood backstage, listening to the speculation. Nobody guessed the truth. Margaret took the stage first. Good morning, everyone, she said into the microphone. Thank you for gathering on short notice. As you know, we've been searching for a new CEO. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce him to all of you. She paused for effect. Please welcome Mr. James Morrison. James walked out onto the stage. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People started whispering, pointing because half of them recognized him. James took the microphone. Good morning, he said. I know many of you are confused right now. You're thinking, isn't that the janitor? The guy who cleans our offices at night? He saw heads nodding throughout the audience. You're right. For the past 6 months, I've been working here as a night janitor. Not because I needed the money. Not because I couldn't find another job. But because I wanted to understand this company in a way that most CEOs never do. He walked across the stage, making eye contact with different sections of the crowd. I wanted to know what it's like to be at the bottom, to be invisible, to have people talk over you like you don't exist. And I learned a lot. I learned that this company has amazing employees who care deeply about their work. I also learned that we have some serious problems. Problems that start with how we treat each other. He paused, letting that sink in. Starting today, things are going to change. We're going to build a culture where every employee, from the executive suite to the cleaning crew, is valued and respected, where good work is rewarded, where innovation is encouraged, where bullying and disrespect are not tolerated. Applause started in the back and spread through the auditorium. I'm not promising it will be easy, James continued. We have financial challenges. We have operational inefficiencies. We have a lot of work ahead of us. But I believe in this company. I believe in all of you. And together we're going to turn Maxwell Industries into something great. More applause. People were standing now. My door is always open, James said. I mean that literally. I remember what it's like to feel invisible. I will never forget. So if you have ideas, concerns, or just want to talk, come find me. I promise I'll listen. As he spoke, James's eyes scanned the crowd. He was looking for 2 specific people, and then he found them. Rick and Tony were standing in the back near the exit. Their faces were pale. They looked like they'd seen a ghost. James smiled at them. I also want to address something specific, he said. In my time here, I observed how different employees treat each other. I saw kindness. I saw teamwork. But I also saw cruelty. I saw bullying. I saw people abusing their small amount of power to make others feel worthless. Rick's face went from pale to red. To those employees, James continued, I have a message. That behavior ends today. Everyone in this company will be treated with dignity. If you can't do that, you don't belong here, period. He let those words hang in the air. Thank you all for your time. Now let's get to work. The applause was thunderous as James walked off stage. As James walked through the hallway after the meeting, employees stopped to congratulate him. Mr. Morrison? James turned. A young woman with dark hair stood there. I'm Sarah Chen, I work in accounting. Thank you for what you said about respect. That's just how it should be, James said. Sarah hesitated. The security guards have been harassing me for months, following me to my car. I reported it twice, but nothing happened. James felt anger rising. Nothing happened? My manager said security guards are hard to replace. What's your manager's name? Tom Brody. James pulled out his phone and made a note. Sarah, I want you to file another report, but this time send it directly to me. Include everything. Dates, times, what was said, who witnessed it. Can you do that? Sarah nodded, tears forming in her eyes. Really? You'll actually do something? I promise you. This ends now. After Sarah left, James headed to his office. Every few steps, someone else stopped him. An IT technician wanted to thank him for listening to their department's concerns. A sales representative had ideas about expanding into new markets. A custodian, someone who'd worked alongside James during the night shifts, grabbed his hand and wouldn't let go. Thank you, the custodian said, eyes shining. Thank you for seeing us, for making us matter. By the time he reached the executive floor, 2 hours had passed. James's hand hurt from all the handshakes. His face hurt from smiling, but his heart felt full. His assistant Patricia was waiting outside his office. Mr. Morrison, you have about 30 messages already. From who? Media, mostly. The Chicago Tribune wants an interview. So does Forbes and the Wall Street Journal. James rubbed his temples. Tell them I'll do interviews next week. Right now I need to focus on the company. Yes, sir. Also, security management brought those files you requested. They're on your desk. James entered his office and saw 3 thick binders with security footage reports. He started reading. What he found made his blood boil. Rick and Tony had a pattern. They targeted vulnerable employees, janitors, interns, young, women like Sarah. There were 17 formal complaints filed against them in the past year, 17, and nothing had been done. James picked up his phone and called Susan Garcia again. Susan, I need Rick Thompson and Tony Martinez in my office now. Sir, their shift doesn't start until 6 tonight. Call them. Tell them it's mandatory. I'll pay them for the extra hours. I want them here in 1 hour. Yes, sir. James spent the next hour reviewing documents. The financial situation was worse than he'd thought. But he also found opportunities, new markets, technology investments, talented employees whose ideas had been ignored. This company could be saved. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Morrison, Rick Thompson, and Tony Martinez are here. Send them in. The door opened. Rick and Tony walked in, looking nervous in jeans and t-shirts. Close the door, James said without looking up. Tony closed it. Sit down. They sat. James let them wait, typing for another minute. Finally, he looked up. Do you know why you're here? Rick cleared his throat. No, sir. Sir? James raised an eyebrow. That's interesting. Last night you told me not to call you sir. You said, and I quote, don't you sir me. Rick's face went red. Mr. Morrison, I didn't know who you were. If you had known I was going to be your boss, you would have treated me with respect. Is that what you were going to say? Yes, sir. I mean, no, sir. Rick stammered. Let me ask you something, James interrupted, his voice cutting through Rick's stammering. Why should your respect for another human being depend on their job title? Why should you treat someone differently? Because they clean floors instead of sitting behind a desk? Can you answer me that? Neither guard answered. They stared at the floor. I'll tell you why, James continued. Because you thought you could get away with it. Because you thought nobody would care. Because you thought someone in a janitor's uniform wasn't worth treating like a human being. I've been reviewing your files, James continued. 17 complaints in the past year. 17 employees who said you made them feel uncomfortable, disrespected, or harassed. Do you know what happened to those complaints? I don't know, sir, Tony said quietly. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Your supervisors swept them under the rug. They said good security guards are hard to find, that the complainants were being too sensitive. James stood up and walked to the window. Let me tell you what I saw. I saw you mock employees, make inappropriate comments to women, steal food, and go out of your way to make me feel worthless. He turned to face them. That pizza you made me eat wasn't about the pizza. It was about power. About making yourself feel big by making someone else feel small. Mr. Morrison, Rick started, I'm not finished. You treated me like garbage, but I wasn't the only one. You've created a culture of fear at that security desk. Employees avoid coming to work early or leaving late because they don't want to deal with you. Do you understand how serious that is? Both men stared at the floor. Here's what's going to happen, James said. You're both suspended for 2 weeks without pay. During that time, you're going to think very carefully about whether you want to continue working here, because when you come back, there will be zero tolerance for disrespect. 1 complaint, 1 incident, and you're fired. Do I make myself clear? Yes, sir, they both mumbled. I can't hear you. Yes, sir. They said louder. Good, but before you go, I want you to understand something. I'm not doing this because you hurt my feelings. I don't care about that. I'm doing this because employees like Sarah Chen deserve to feel safe at work. Young interns deserve to be treated with dignity. Janitors deserve respect. James walked back to his desk. You're dismissed. Report to HR on your way out for the formal suspension paperwork. Rick and Tony stood up. They started walking toward the door. One more thing, James said. They turned around. The next time you see someone eating leftovers from the break room, or someone whose clothes aren't as nice as yours, or someone whose job seems less important than yours, remember this moment. Remember that you never know who that person really is, or who they might become. After they left, James sat down heavily. His hands were shaking from adrenaline. He'd wanted to fire them on the spot. But that wouldn't fix anything. It would just make him as bad as them. His phone rang. It was Robert Chen. How'd it go? Robert asked. I suspended them for 2 weeks. That's it? That's the start. They'll either change, or they'll give me a reason to fire them. Either way, the message is sent. Some people are saying you're being too soft. That you should have fired them immediately. Maybe, James said, but I believe people can change. I'm giving them one chance, one. You're a better man than me, Robert said. I would have canned them. After the call, James checked his watch. Already 1:30. He'd promised to visit his mother at 2. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the elevator. Employees greeted him as he walked through the building. In the parking garage, he paused at his old Honda. Tomorrow, he'd get his new company car. But today, he'd drive this one more time. The drive to his mother's house took 30 minutes. She lived in a modest neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. Her nurse, Rosa, answered the door. James, she's been so excited. Come in. His mother was in the living room in her wheelchair. She looked thin and tired, but her eyes lit up when she saw him. There's my boy, she said. James knelt down and hugged her carefully. Hi, Mom. Rosa says you have big news. Don't keep me waiting. James sat on the couch across from her. Remember how I told you I was working as a janitor? Of course. I hated that you had to do that kind of work. You're so smart, James. You deserve better. Mom, I wasn't really a janitor. I mean, I was, but not because I couldn't find anything else. I was researching a company, learning how it worked from the inside. His mother frowned, confused. I don't understand. Today I was officially named CEO of Maxwell Industries. I'm not a janitor anymore. I'm the boss. His mother's mouth fell open. What? James, is this a joke? No joke. I'm really the CEO. I start officially on Monday. Tears started running down his mother's face. Oh, James, oh, honey. Your father would be so proud. James felt his own eyes getting wet. His throat was tight with emotion. I did it for you, Mom, for us. The salary is enough to cover your treatments. All of them. Every single one. The best doctors. The best care. You don't have to worry about money anymore. You don't have to worry about anything. His mother was crying openly now, tears streaming down her cheeks. You gave up everything for me. Your company in California. Your apartment by the ocean. Your whole life. You spent 6 months cleaning toilets and being humiliated. And I didn't even know. I thought you were struggling. I thought I was a burden. You're not a burden, Mom. You're my mother. You're everything. You're my mother. Of course I did. They sat together talking. James told her everything. Those security guards sound awful, his mother said. What are you going to do? I suspended them. Gave them a chance to change. That's very forgiving. You taught me everyone deserves a second chance, his mother smiled. I also taught you that actions have consequences. Don't be too forgiving. Some people need to learn the hard way. They talked until 5. Then James had to leave. I'll come back this weekend, he promised. We'll celebrate properly. I'm so proud of you, his mother said again. On the drive back, James's phone kept buzzing. But one message caught his attention. Sarah Chen. Mr. Morrison, I sent you the full report. Thank you for listening. You've given me hope. James smiled. That's what this was all about. Making things better for people like Sarah, for everyone who'd been made to feel small. He pulled into his apartment complex. Tomorrow he'd move into a nicer place, but tonight he'd sleep here one last time. As he lay in bed, James thought about everything that had happened. 24 hours ago, he was a janitor. Now he was a CEO, but the work was just beginning. He had a whole company to transform, a culture to change, profits to rebuild, and he had to do it while everyone watched, while skeptics waited for him to fail. But James wasn't worried. He knew exactly what needed to be done. James woke up at 6 the next morning, Friday. His first full day as CEO. He went for a run to clear his head. The November air was cold but refreshing. By 8, he was in his office. Patricia had organized his schedule. You have a management meeting at 9, she said. Lunch with the board at noon. And 3 department heads want to meet with you this afternoon. What about the Forbes interview? Scheduled for next Tuesday. Good, Patricia, I want to meet with every department head individually over the next 2 weeks. Every department? That's 12 meetings. Schedule them. The management meeting was tense. David Wright, the CFO, had doubts. Your suspension of Rick and Tony has caused quite a stir, David said. I care about what's right, James said. Those guards violated our code repeatedly. The suspension is appropriate. But what message does it send? That everyone is accountable. Even people who think they're untouchable because previous management ignored them. Jennifer Park, the head of operations, spoke up. I support the decision. We've had complaints about those guards for years. Thank you, Jennifer, James said. But this isn't just about Rick and Tony. This is about creating a culture where everyone feels safe and respected. HR, I want a full review of how we handle complaints. Kevin Ross, the HR director, nodded. Yes, sir. I'll have a report by next week. The meeting continued. James took notes. Asked questions. Pushed back when needed. By the time it ended, some executives were starting to respect him. Others were still skeptical. That was fine. At noon, James had lunch with the board at an upscale restaurant. Margaret Sullivan was there along with Robert Chen. The media coverage has been incredible, Margaret said. The janitor who became CEO, it's a great story. It's my life, James said, of course, but you have to admit it's compelling. We're getting inquiries from potential clients who want to work with us now because of the publicity. That's good. But publicity doesn't fix operational problems. I need the board's support to make some big changes. What kind of changes? Asked Thomas Brennan, a skeptical board member. We need to invest in technology. Our systems are outdated. Technology investments are expensive, Thomas said. We're already operating at a loss. They're expensive short-term, but they'll save money and bring revenue long-term. I have projections. James showed them the numbers on his tablet. The board members looked impressed. This is thorough, Robert said. I've had 6 months to think about it. By the end of lunch, the board approved a technology upgrade budget of $5 million. It wasn't everything James wanted, but it was a start. As James walked back, his phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Morrison, this is Detective Lisa Hayes with the Chicago Police Department. I'm calling about a complaint from Rick Thompson and Tony Martinez. James's stomach dropped. What kind of complaint? Wrongful termination and harassment. They say you have a personal vendetta. I suspended them, not terminated them. They're claiming retaliation. James closed his eyes. Of course, they were trying to fight back. Detective Hayes, I have extensive documentation of policy violations by both employees, including video footage and written complaints from multiple sources. This isn't retaliation. It's accountability. I understand, but I need to investigate. Can you come down to the station? When? Today, if possible. This afternoon? James checked his watch. I have meetings until 4. Can I come at 5? That works. Thank you for cooperating. James called the company's lawyer, Amanda Price. Amanda, we have a problem. He explained the situation. Don't worry, she said. This is typical. When employees get disciplined, they try to flip the script. But if you have documentation, we'll be fine. I have documentation. Good, I'll meet you at the station. Don't say anything without me present. The rest of the afternoon was a blur. Meetings with IT, sales, and operations. Every conversation reinforced what James knew. This company had good people with good ideas. They just needed a leader who would listen. At 4:45, James left for the police station. Amanda met him in the parking lot. Be honest but brief, she said. Don't volunteer information. Inside, Detective Hayes was waiting. Younger than James expected, with serious eyes. Thank you for coming in. Please sit down. James and Amanda sat. This isn't a criminal investigation, Hayes said, but I'm required to look into workplace harassment complaints. I understand. Can you tell me in your own words what happened with Rick Thompson and Tony Martinez? James explained everything. His 6 months as a janitor. The pattern of harassment. The 17 complaints. The suspension decision. Do you have proof? Hayes asked. Amanda pulled out a folder. All documented. Video footage. Written complaints. Email records. Hayes reviewed the documents. This is pretty damning, she said. It's the truth, James replied. The guards say you humiliated them in front of other employees, that you used your position of power to seek revenge. I suspended them in private, James said. The only people in my office were me, Rick, and Tony. If they felt humiliated, it's because their actions caught up with them. Did you tell other employees about the suspension? No, that information was confidential. If people found out, it wasn't from me. Hayes made more notes. Mr. Thompson also claims you made him and Mr. Martinez come to the office on their day off and berated them for over an hour. I asked them to come in for a meeting. I paid them for their time. The meeting lasted 20 minutes, and I didn't berate them. I explained why they were being suspended and what would happen when they returned. Amanda added, "We have phone records showing the call requesting they come in. We have sign-in records showing when they arrived and left. Everything Mr. Morrison says can be verified. Off the record, Mr. Morrison, you're finally holding them accountable. They're trying to muddy the waters by claiming victimhood," Hayes said. "Exactly," Amanda agreed. "I'll file my report," Hayes said, "but I don't see criminal activity. This is a workplace matter. If they want to pursue it, they'll need to file a civil complaint." Outside, Amanda seemed satisfied. That went well. But be prepared. They could file a wrongful termination suit. They weren't terminated, not yet. But if they come back and mess up, they will be. And then they'll sue. James drove home exhausted. Only his second day as CEO, and already dealing with police investigations. But he wasn't discouraged. This was part of making real changes. That night, Sarah Chen called. "Mr. Morrison, I heard about their complaint. I'm willing to testify if needed." "Thank you, Sarah, that means a lot." "No, thank you. You're the first person who's actually done something. You're making it happen." James felt energized again. This was why he was doing this. For employees like Sarah. Over the weekend, James moved into a new apartment. Nothing fancy. Just a 2-bedroom in a better neighborhood. He spent Saturday with his mother. She was having a good day. "I'm scared, James," she admitted. "What if those guards cause trouble?" "I won't lose my job, Mom. The board supports me." "I don't want this to blow up. It won't, trust me." On Sunday, James went to the office for paperwork. As he walked through the empty halls, he thought about his time as a janitor, about being invisible. He stopped at the break room where he'd eaten those leftovers, where Rick had mocked him. Those days were over, but he'd never forget them. That memory would make him a better leader. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We're not done with you. You'll regret this." James knew who it was from. He deleted it and kept working. Let them threaten. Monday morning came quickly. James's alarm went off at 6, but when he walked into Maxwell Industries, something felt different, better. Employees smiled, said good morning. Some stopped to chat. "Want to join us for coffee, boss?" A group asked. "Thank you, but I have a meeting. Maybe tomorrow." Patricia had his schedule ready. "Busy day," she said. "Meetings back-to-back until 6. Let's do it." The department head meetings over the next several days were revealing. Gloria Martinez, head of janitorial services, was particularly interesting. "Mr. Morrison," she said, "when I heard you'd worked as a janitor, I was skeptical. But then I saw the changes you're making. It matters." "Thank you, Gloria, but I want to talk to you about something. My team has been underpaid for years. We do essential work, but we're treated like we're invisible. You know what that's like. I do. Can you help us?" "I'm going to fix it," James said. "Give me your budget proposal by Friday. Fair wages, better benefits, proper equipment. I'll get it approved." Gloria's eyes filled with tears. "Really? Really? Your team deserves respect and fair compensation." After Gloria left, James felt good. This was what being CEO should be about. Making a real difference in people's lives. But not everyone was happy. On Wednesday, David Wright came to his office looking angry. "James, you promised the janitorial staff a budget increase." "We can't afford that." "We'll find the money," James said. "How?" "If necessary, by cutting other areas." "David, those workers are the lowest paid. Some work 2 jobs just to survive. That's not acceptable." "It's business, James. I'm asking for living wages, not executive salaries. There's a difference. You're going to bankrupt this company. Then I'll go down fighting for what's right rather than profiting off exploitation." David left, slamming the door. James knew he was making enemies, but he also knew he was doing the right thing. That afternoon, Amanda Price called. Rick and Tony filed a lawsuit. Wrongful suspension, emotional distress, hostile work environment. How can it be wrongful? They're claiming discrimination, that you targeted them because of their race and background. James felt anger rising. "That's absurd. It's a common tactic. We'll win, but it's going to be messy. Media coverage, depositions, they're asking for $500,000. Great, don't let it rattle you. Focus on running the company. Let me handle this. But it was hard not to be rattled. That evening, James saw the news covering the story. Former security guards are suing Maxwell Industries and its controversial CEO. This raises questions about Morrison's fitness to lead. James turned off the TV. They'd made him sound like the bad guy. Robert Chen called. I saw the news, Robert said. Don't worry. The board stands behind you. What if this damages the company? It won't. People love your story. The media is creating drama. Ignore it and keep doing your job. The next morning, the Forbes interview went well. Christina Park asked tough questions. Some people say your methods were deceptive, she said. I didn't lie, James replied. I applied for a janitor job and did it for 6 months to understand the company and the guards. Was that revenge? It was accountability. Those guards had 17 documented complaints. Nothing was done because previous management didn't care. I care, but now they're suing you. They can sue. The truth is on my side. The article came out the following week. The Janitor CEO, how James Morrison is revolutionizing corporate leadership. It was mostly positive, capturing his vision and commitment, but it mentioned the lawsuit. Rick's lawyer claimed Mr. Morrison abused his power to settle personal scores. James tried not to let it bother him. 2 weeks later, Rick and Tony returned to work. They met with HR first to review the code of conduct. James had Susan Garcia monitor them closely. For a few days, everything seemed fine. But then Sarah Chen called. Mr. Morrison, they're at it again. What happened? Rick followed me to my car tonight. Just stood there, watching. It was intimidating. Did anyone else see? The parking lot was empty. James felt fury building in his chest. His hands clenched into fists. Sarah, file an official report now. Send it directly to my email. And from this moment forward, don't walk to your car alone, ever. Ask security to escort you. But Rick is security, Sarah said, her voice small and afraid. Then ask a different guard. Ask Tom, ask Lisa. Anyone but Rick or Tony. And if no one else is available, you call me. You have my direct number now. I don't care if it's midnight. I'll walk you to your car myself if needed. Do you understand? You will never feel unsafe here again. I promise you that. James called Susan Garcia. Rick violated the terms of his return. I want him in my office tomorrow morning. 8 sharp, Rick arrived looking defiant. Susan and Kevin from HR were with him. Sit down, James said. Last night you followed Sarah Chen to her car. Don't deny it. I have her statement, and I'm pulling parking lot footage as we speak. I was just walking to my car, Rick said. Same as her. Your car is parked on the opposite side of the lot. You had no reason to be where she was. I can walk anywhere I want in a public parking lot. James leaned forward. When you came back, you were told 0 tolerance. This is strike 1. There won't be a strike 2. One more complaint, you're fired. Understand? Rick looked at him. You're just waiting for an excuse. No, I'm giving you a chance to change. But if you don't, that's on you. After Rick left, Kevin spoke. James, maybe we should fire him now. I want to give him every possible chance. When we fire him, if it comes to that, the documentation will be airtight. Over the next few weeks, things settled into routine. James worked 12-hour days, implemented changes, reviewed financials. The technology upgrades began rolling out. Employees were excited about new systems. Gloria's budget increase was approved. The janitorial staff got raises and better benefits. Gloria cried when James told her. You didn't have to do this, she said. Yes, I did. It's right. Slowly, the company turned around. Sales improved. Employee morale went up. Major clients stayed. The Forbes article generated positive attention. Companies reached out wanting to partner, but Rick remained a problem. Employees reported feeling uncomfortable around him. Finally, 3 months after James became CEO, it happened. A young intern named Michael reported that Rick had made threatening comments. He told me I should watch my back, Michael said, voice shaking. He said people who complain about security have a way of getting hurt. That was it. The final straw. James called Rick into his office one last time. You're fired, James said simply. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You can't do this, Rick said. Yes, I can. You were given explicit warnings. You violated them. You're done. This is harassment. I'll sue you again. Go ahead. I have 3 months of documentation. Every complaint, every warning, every second chance you were given. You did this to yourself. Rick stood up, face red with anger. You think you're so much better than me. But you're just a janitor playing dress-up. Maybe, but I'm a janitor who became CEO. What are you? Security escorted Rick out. He shouted threats the whole way. Tony surprisingly stayed on. After seeing Rick fired, he seemed to realize things were serious. His behavior improved. He actually started being polite to employees. James was cautiously optimistic that Tony might turn things around. That evening, James visited his mother. She was doing much better. The treatments were working. She'd even gained some weight back. You look tired, honey, she said. I am tired. Being CEO is harder than I thought. But are you happy? James thought about that. Yeah, Mom, I am. I'm making a difference. That makes all the hard work worth it. Your father would be so proud. I'm so proud. As James drove home that night, he felt satisfied. Not because he'd fired Rick, but because he'd done everything possible to help him change first. Some people chose to learn. Some people chose to stay the same. That was their choice. James had done his part. Now he could move forward. 6 months after James became CEO, Maxwell Industries held its quarterly board meeting. Revenue is up 23%, David Wright announced. We've signed 5 major new clients. Employee retention improved by 40%. Customer satisfaction scores are at an all-time high. James sat at the head of the table. It had been a long journey, but worth every moment. The culture change is remarkable, Jennifer Park added. Top talent wants to work here now. Margaret Sullivan smiled. James, some of us had doubts. But you've proven that understanding a company from the ground up was exactly right. Thomas Brennan nodded. I was your biggest skeptic. I was wrong. You've turned this company around. It wasn't just me, James said. Every employee played a part. When people feel valued and respected, they do amazing work. After the meeting, Robert Chen pulled James aside. How does it feel? Surreal. 6 months ago, I was mopping floors. You earned it. What about the lawsuit? Rick's lawsuit was dismissed. The judge said there was overwhelming evidence of policy violations. Tony's actually become one of our better guards. People change when given the right motivation. And Rick? I heard he got a job at another company. I hope he learned something. That afternoon, James held an all-company meeting. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone respected him. 6 months ago, I told you we were going to build something special, James said. A company where everyone matters, where good work is rewarded, where respect isn't optional. Thank you for believing in that vision and making it real. The applause was genuine. They weren't clapping because he was the boss. They meant it. After the meeting, Sarah Chen approached him. Mr. Morrison, I got promoted. I'm the new accounting supervisor. Sarah, that's wonderful. Congratulations. I never would have applied if not for you. Thank you. You earned that promotion. Thank yourself for being brave enough to report what was wrong. Over the next few weeks, more good news came. The company won a prestigious industry award for workplace culture. Business schools asked to study Maxwell Industries as a case study in transformational leadership. James did more interviews. Each time he told the same story, about humility, about understanding people at every level, about how true leadership meant serving others, not being served. One evening, Tony Martinez knocked on his door. Mr. Morrison, do you have a minute? Of course, Tony. Sit down. Tony sat looking nervous. When you first became CEO, I thought you were out for revenge. I remember, but you didn't. You gave us chances. Rick didn't take those chances, I did. And I want to thank you for that. You're welcome, Tony, but you're the one who changed. I just opened the door. Most bosses wouldn't have opened the door at all. They would have just fired us on day one. Tony stood to leave, then paused. That night when Rick made you eat that cold pizza. I'm sorry. That was wrong, James nodded. Thank you for saying that. It means a lot. After Tony left, James sat alone thinking. A year ago, he was running a startup in California. Then his mother got sick. Then he became a janitor. Then a CEO. Life was unpredictable, but full of opportunities if you were willing to work for them. His phone rang. His mother. Hi, Mom. James, the doctor called. The latest scans are clear. The cancer is in remission. James felt tears spring to his eyes. Mom, that's amazing. I couldn't have done it without you. It wasn't a sacrifice, Mom, it was love. They talked for an hour. When James finally hung up, he looked around his office. The same office where 6 months ago he'd confronted Rick and Tony. The same office where he'd made difficult decisions. Where he'd learned what it really meant to lead. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a worn name tag that said Janitor with his name underneath. He'd kept it as a reminder of where he came from and why he did this job. James pinned the name tag to his bulletin board, right next to his CEO plaques. Never forget. That was his promise. Never forget what it felt like to be invisible, to be mocked, because that memory would keep him humble. It would keep him focused on what mattered. Not profits, not awards, but people. At a few weeks later, Maxwell Industries celebrated the fiscal year-end with a company party. Everyone was invited. James walked through the party talking to people, thanking them for their hard work, listening to their stories, their dreams, their concerns. He wasn't the CEO up on a pedestal. He was James, one of them, someone who understood what it meant to work hard for a living. A young woman from accounting told him about her daughter's first day of kindergarten. An IT specialist shared his idea for a new software system. A janitor, Miguel, pulled James aside and showed him a photo of his new grandson. "Thank you for making us feel like family here," Miguel said. Gloria found him by the buffet table, her face glowing with pride. "Mr. Morrison, this is my daughter, Maria. She just graduated from college." James shook Maria's hand. "Nice to meet you. Are you looking for a job?" "I was hoping to apply here. My mom says this is the best place she's ever worked. We'd be lucky to have you. Talk to HR on Monday. Tell them I sent you." Maria's eyes lit up. "Thank you so much." Patricia appeared at James's elbow after they left. "You're going to hire everyone's relatives at this rate," James laughed. "Maybe, but if they're as hard-working as Gloria, why not? That's how you build loyalty. You invest in people." As the party wound down, James stood on a stage with a microphone. "Can I have everyone's attention?" The room quieted. "Thank you. To every single person in this room, when I started here as a janitor, I learned something important. A company isn't its profits or its products. It's its people. You are Maxwell Industries, and I'm honored to work alongside you." He raised his glass. "Here's to the next year. To growth, to success, to treating each other with dignity and respect, to building something we can all be proud of." Everyone raised their glasses. Later, as James was leaving, he passed the security desk. A new guard was on duty. "Have a good night, Mr. Morrison," she said cheerfully. "You too, Lisa. Stay warm." James stepped out into the cold December night. Snow was falling gently. He walked to his car thinking about the journey, about how far he'd come, about all the people whose lives had been changed, including his own. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Rick. I wanted you to know I got a new job. Better pay than Maxwell. But I also wanted to say you were right. I was treating people badly. I'm trying to do better now. Not for you. For me." James stared at the message, then typed back, "I'm glad to hear that, Rick. Good luck. Everyone deserves a second chance to do better." He got in his car and started the engine. As James drove home through the snowy streets, watching the flakes dance in his headlights, he thought about all the lessons he'd learned. About humility, about justice, about seeing people for who they really are, not just their job titles or the clothes they wear or the cars they drive. He thought about the janitor he'd been and the CEO he'd become. And he realized that in many ways he was still the same person. Someone who believed in hard work, in fairness, in treating people with dignity, in giving people chances to change and grow. The only difference was now he had the power to make those beliefs real. Now he could create the kind of workplace he'd always dreamed of. A place where everyone mattered, where respect wasn't earned by title but given by default, where the janitor was just as important as the CEO, because in the end, they were all just people trying to make a living, trying to take care of their families, trying to build something meaningful. James pulled into his apartment parking lot and sat for a moment. He thought about tomorrow, about the meetings waiting, about the employees depending on him. It was a big responsibility, but he was ready, because he'd learned something important during those 6 months as a janitor, something that would guide him for the rest of his career. True leadership wasn't about power. It wasn't about titles or corner offices. True leadership was about service, about lifting others up, About creating a place where everyone, from the janitor to the CEO, was treated with dignity. That was the kind of leader James Morrison intended to be. Not perfect, but always striving to do what was right. As he walked to his apartment, James smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new problems to solve, new people to help. But tonight he would rest, knowing he'd done his best, knowing he'd stayed true to his values, knowing that sometimes the journey from the bottom to the top taught you more than any business school ever could. And that was a lesson worth learning.